This show is sponsored by Sevi, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevi is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevi at Sevi, SEVI, properties.com. Again, SeviProperties.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Shirley Diaz. Shirley is the managing attorney of Diaz Vidales. Welcome to the show, Shirley.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. So before we go into your personal and business journey, I like the audience to get to know the business a little bit. Obviously, they hear the name, but they're like, okay, she's an attorney. What do they do there? Do they specialize in anything? So if you can just give us a brief overview of what you folks do there.
Yes, it's an estate planning firm. We also help with business formation and nonprofit formation. But the bread and butter is getting everyone's affairs in order, getting your estate plan done, especially if you're a business owner, especially if you have kids. And if you are a business owner, then we'll also help you getting your LLC in place, any of your corporate documents, if that's what you're organizing as. And then if you want to have any nonprofits, we also help organize nonprofits.
That's great. If you don't mind, later in the show, I would like to, get deep in the trench as far as, from an elementary school perspective, if someone's listening to this and a business owner or maybe an aspiring business owner, they're like, what is an estate? What's a trust? And so we're gonna take it back like I'm a first grader type of thing.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Whenever you want me to get into it, you just let me know.
Yeah, definitely. So are you originally from the DMV area?
I'm not. I'm a California girl, originally from Southern California. Also lived some time in Nevada and in Utah, so all West Coast. But I have been in DC for almost 7 years now.
Okay. Okay. So Southern
Yeah,
California, like Los Angeles or whereabouts?
Orange County. So yeah, just south of Los Angeles in Orange County, in a town called Huntington Beach. It's like south of um south of Seal Beach, north of like Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, like those beaches that people have heard of.
So did you grow up like surfing? I'm sure was the beach like your backyard or something like that, or
So like I personally don't know how to surf, but yes, like our high school had a surf team and they would go surf like at 6 in the morning and they would come to like first period with like sand coming out of their hair and like still dripping from the water. So yeah, there was surf culture is huge in Huntington Beach, but I personally don't know how to surf. No.
okay. So you were born there, you grew up there, and you did all through high school there?
I did all through high school there, and then I we moved to Nevada my junior year of high school. So I
Oh,
guess it was cut in half. Yeah. So I did half of my high school in Nevada, and then went to school in Nevada. And then my first job I was working out in Utah. So that's how I'm all over the West Coast.
how was that move from you? Especially, you've been in a place basically all your life, and then all of a sudden they just take the roots out. You're like, okay, junior year in high school where you think you've planted your
I
roots and
know.
we're going to
Exactly.
Nevada.
Yeah, so I had never heard, so we moved to a place called Carson City, Nevada, out of all places. So it wasn't even like we moved to Vegas or something that people have heard of. It was like literally the tiniest town with like a population of 50,000 versus like Orange County has like 2 million people.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was a shock, but I learned to love like the rodeo and like I learned like to go to like the rib cook-off festival and the chicken wing festival and like it was like the Wild West. It was great. I love Nevada now.
Why that move to Nevada?
My mom had always wanted to own a bakery. She was a chemist by training, but I guess she just had always wanted to own a bakery. And she found a bakery for sale in Carson City, Nevada for like $5,000 or something crazy. And her and my dad had just divorced, and the post-divorce glow up is like a real thing for women. So she's just like, I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna go buy this bakery in Carson City, Nevada. And so we went
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
and it was fun. Yeah, it was fun to watch her run the business. This was right before the 2008 recession. So the business, she ended up having to sell it because it wasn't, the prices started going up and it was a hard time for the family, but it was good to see that example of entrepreneurship. And I think that like planted the seed of like, maybe someday I can do something like this. So maybe that's where it started.
Yeah. How long did she have the business for?
Probably only like 2 years, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, she had never owned a business before. Actually, that's not true. Her and my dad owned a laundromat when I was younger, but they both had their day jobs. The laundromat was like we would go in the evening to clean it and collect all the quarters. And then my dad kept the laundromat during the after the divorce. So I think maybe my mom was like, I want to have my own business again. So she went off and opened that bakery. Or I guess she didn't open it. It already was running and the owners were wanting to retire. So they sold it to her. Um, and yeah, so I got to see what it was like to hire, because she would hire these bakers and then she found out we went on vacation one time and she had found out that they were like selling the product, but like not officially, like on the accounts. Like they're basically stealing from her. Like
Mm.
they were taking orders and not putting them in like the official system and just like selling it. Um, and it was like, dang, all these things that can go down if you're not there all the time to like supervise. So it's unfortunate,
Yeah, it's
but
not easy being a
it
business
happens.
owner, especially a small business owner, right?
Yeah, yeah. And she had a teenager because I was a teenager at the time. And my brother had just been born. He was like 6 months. So she had like a baby and a teenager. And she had just become single again. So like it was like a lot. But she did it for a couple of years and it was a fun time. And then she eventually ended up going back to work because I think, a paycheck is at least consistent,
Hmm.
if anything.
Yeah. That's a big age gap between you and your brother.
Yeah, yeah, I'm 15 years older than him. We have different dads. So like I said, when my parents divorced, my mom was had a boyfriend and they had Christian. And he also has his company moved him to Nevada. So I think that's why another reason she was looking
Uh,
in that area,
okay.
because her boyfriend got relocated for work and then she like found the bakery nearby. And so she was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna move as well. But yeah.
Shirley, I'm glad you mentioned earlier as far as your parents had a laundromat together and this was sort of like a side business besides your full-time jobs and you would help out in the evening. So I guess during school or after school, I'm sorry, after school, I was going to ask you, were you into any activities or sports? Was it a lot of you just helping around the house with your parents with this business or were you into other things?
I was a dancer. I was in the dance studio every day after school from like 5 to 7 p.m. Probably even earlier than that because school gets out like at what, 2:30 or 3 o'clock when you're a kid. Yeah, I was probably in the studio from like 4 to 7 every day, from the time I was like 3 or 4 years old until I was 15. So yeah, I have not danced in a while, but I am a classically trained tap, jazz, and in West Coast swing.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay. Did you
if
compete?
anyone needs to do a West Coast swing, I I am very well trained in West Coast swing. But yeah, I love dancing. I grew up, like I said, in that dance studio, Lynn Bogan's dance studio in Huntington Beach. And and then so it was after that, like after 7 p.m. is when we would go to the laundromat because the laundromat stay open late and
Hmm.
we wouldn't go until after it was like officially closed. So I would literally just be in the car like sleeping. I was probably like 12, or I would go inside and help, but I would be so tired and like annoyed and it'd be like, why are we here? Like I just want
Yeah.
to be at home. But that was again another good example of me seeing because like they would go to all the laundromat trade shows and there's like a laundromat owners like association and they teach you like all the newest things like that was probably around the time they're switching all the machines from like quarters to like credit cards and like we never made the transition but it was kind of like all the new technology and like all the new things that people were doing in the business so that's kind of how I learned too about there's like associations and chambers and like BNI and like, kind of get involved with the larger business community when you're a small business owner to
Hmm.
stay up to date on like improvements and to have community. And so my parents would take me along with them to all the stuff because,
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, I mean that's just so my family is Hispanic. My dad's from Venezuela. Well, originally Spain, but he grew up in Venezuela. And my mom is Mexican. And like I think it's just the culture, like just the kids just come along with for everything, It doesn't matter what the appointment is or if it's like a professional conference or not, like the kids are coming. So
Yeah.
I
No,
got
no,
exposed to all of
It's so true. That's how it is with myself. You know, growing up with my mother, I would come with her and help her out. Just you're an extra set of hands, right? Yeah,
Right, right,
yeah,
that too. And like especially because I was the English speaker. I mean, they speak English, but not as clearly or as well as I do. So sometimes it's like, can you tell me like what did they say? Translate this, fill out this form.
yep.
You're kind of a little paralegal, little legal assistant, form filler, translator, everything.
I was 100% in that situation. I still remember like even mail. You know, they're like, "Hey, you know, can you help me? What does it mean?" Like even yesterday I was talking to my father and he was like, "Hey, I got these medical things and it's in English. They explained to me, but when you come over this weekend, he's like, you know, can you just?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure, Dad." And I have a younger brother too, but you know, I'm just so used to it.
Exactly, exactly. But all of that helps because like I was able to, as soon as I turned 18, be very independent because I knew how to make my own doctor's appointments and I knew how to, fill out forms and legal documents and I wasn't like afraid of it or so in the end it was all very helpful. In the moment I'd be very annoyed and be like, why don't you guys just do it? But
Yeah. So you graduate high school in Carson City, Nevada,
yeah.
and then from there, do you already know, hey, I'm going here for college. I want to do this with my career. Do you have a plan or no?
Yes, I did. I definitely had a vision of what I wanted to do. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. Since I was a kid, I mean, I was doing dance and I did consider like trying to be a professional dancer, but I knew that there was kind of like, well, J-Lo's breaking this barrier, right? Like I knew there was like a limit to how long you can do that. Um, and so I figured, I should have an education and a career in something else that's not dependent on my body's ability to perform. But like I said, J-Lo's still doing it in her 50s, so I could have totally stuck with it. But so then the the thing that I always remember is not just my parents, but like those in our community always always needing a lawyer, like whether it's like an immigration issue or like a small business issue where someone gets, taken advantage of or things like that. For some reason, I feel like people were always looking for lawyers and there was never any lawyer available. None of them ever spoke Spanish, and they are kind of like a really rare and like respected kind of person. And so I always felt like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. I'm gonna help
Hmm.
people. I'm gonna do that by being a lawyer. So, but I didn't know how to do that. So actually, when I graduated from high school, I applied to the local university out there. It's the University of Nevada. It's in Reno. And I thought that was law school. Like I literally showed up and was like, cool, like where are the law school classes?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh no. They're like, this, you have to finish college first and then you can go to law school. Like that's how lost I was. I literally had no idea how to even become a lawyer. I had never actually met a lawyer in real life. I had just, seen them on TV, and had heard people always talking about like, oh, we need a lawyer, we need a lawyer, no one can find anyone. So it was a journey, but I did know that that's what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to get there. But I got myself into college. I got that far. So,
That's good.
yeah.
So I guess undergrad was a lot of lawyers do political science, or what'd you end up majoring in?
I majored in political science.
Oh, there
Yep.
you go.
So I did do some research. Once I was told that this was not law school, then I started doing research and I looked at who are like the lawyers in our community. So in Orange County, our congresswoman was Loretta Sanchez. She was one of the few Latina congressional representatives, and her sister was also a congressional representative for a different district. And she would always go to the Huntington Beach 4th of July parade. And that was like the time where she was like available to the public. And so my mom would always make it a point to go up to her during like while she's walking mid parade to go up to her and to just talk to her and remind her like, hey, like we live in your district and the community's here, we're proud of you, like, keep working for us and keep doing your thing. And I knew she was a lawyer, right? Because she had spoken to me when as a kid during the parades. And actually one time she invited us to her office in the district and she like let me sit in her chair and she was like, one day, you can be a congresswoman if you want to. And so I knew she was a lawyer. So my research started with her path, like what did she do? And that kind of also led me to look at what other Congress people did because I knew most of them were lawyers, and that's how I saw most of them studied political science. And so that was kind of like the roundabout way that I realized, like, okay, I need to study political science. So yes,
You
that's
know,
what I did.
it's so funny. It just reminds me, Shirley. This was pre-internet. I can't remember, but I'm in high school, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to college. But I'm like, I don't know what to study. I've always been interested in business, so I go to my high school library, which is not that large. And then I look for business books in there, and then obviously there's only a few biographies. Like, your back then was Warren Buffett, and there was a
Mhm.
biography of Buffett or Peter Lynch, who's in the stock market, and also Donald Trump. But this is back then when the internet wasn't as prevalent as it is today. So I'm like, okay, what do these people do? We like their business, right? One's stock, one's commercial real estate. And I'm like, oh, they studied economics. I'm like, okay, so instead of just business, so eventually that's how I majored in econ in college was
Yeah,
because I'm like, I looked at what Buffett did or Trump or Peter Lynch or some other business
yeah.
books I was reading their biographies. And that's how I sort of majored in econ. So a little similar to how you ended up with poli sci.
Exactly. And that's the way you have to do it. Like I listen to Tony Robbins and he is very big on using mentors and basically using them as a shortcut for what you should do. So if you already, know that you want to have, the life trajectory or something similar to what those people did, then absolutely that's a great place to model after those people to pick your own major. That's what I did. So yeah, so that's why I majored in political science once I found out I wasn't actually in law school.
So then after that, okay, I'm going to try to get a law school. Maybe I would have stayed in state, or I'm thinking of maybe going elsewhere.
Yeah, well, so what happened? I actually kind of diverted my path because part of the requirements to get a political science degree was that you had to work at the Nevada State Legislature for a semester, and you had to take an advanced economics class. So you had to take like the intro to econ, intro to macro, and then an advanced econ class. So the combination of those two things, like the semester that I was working in the state house, there was the financial crisis. It was actually years after that, but there was like a ripple effect for that. So it was 2011, and there were statewide budget cuts happening, and most of the legislators didn't have an economics background, so they had to hire economists to come and consult with them, and the economists would basically give their opinion, and the legislators would follow it because they didn't have any criteria or background to sort of challenge that. And then so I was exposed to that. And then I took the econ classes and I was just very fascinated with the world of finance and econ after that. And so I was like, maybe I want to be an economist instead, because I had never heard of that. I had heard of lawyers, but I had never heard of an economist.
Hmm.
So then I actually went to grad school and studied economics. So I didn't actually go to law school right after undergrad. I went to
Okay.
go study econ. And then I got a job at Goldman Sachs. And so I was like, I'm going to become an economist. I wasn't working as an economist at Goldman Sachs. I was an analyst doing over-the-counter derivatives, which basically don't exist anymore, but at the time they did. And so I thought maybe this is what I want to do instead. But of course, at an investment bank, there are also lawyers that they work in the bank, and they keep track of all the regulatory changes that are happening that cover the space. And so we would get briefings from the in-house lawyers pretty regularly on, at the time it was the Dodd-Frank Reform Act, Wall Street Reform Act, that had been passed and was starting to roll out in phases. And I found out, okay, so I can be a lawyer and still mix in econ if I work in the financial space, because there's so much regulation that covers the economy and finances. So then I said, okay, so now I'm going to still go to law school, but now I kind of know what kind of law I want to practice, because I didn't really have an idea of what kind of law I wanted to practice. I just knew I wanted to be a lawyer. So that experience was very helpful to sort of focus what I wanted to do. So then after 2 years at Goldman, I left to go to law school.
And all this, as far as grad school, Goldman, is this all in Nevada or is this somewhere else?
Grad school, I stayed at the same university that I was at for
Okay.
undergrad. in Nevada.
Hmm.
And then Goldman Sachs, I was working out of their Salt Lake City, Utah office. So I
So
kind of
you
like was
relocated.
making
Okay.
my way east a little bit,
Little by little.
but yeah, little by little. But then I went to law school in California, back in
Oh,
Orange County. So I went
okay.
back to where I started in Orange County.
So when you went into law school, then you had an idea, maybe I can find a way to mix both finance or econ with law.
100%. Yeah. And so
Okay.
that's exactly what I focused on was mixing law and economics basically with
Okay.
my practice.
So then once you finished law school, you're like, okay, I'm heading to Wall Street. Or what happened?
So the law firm recruitment cycle actually starts really early in law school. And there's this concept of these big law firms. I'm sure if you live in DC, you might have heard of them, but if not, like there's basically these like 200 mega law firms that have like over 1,000 attorneys, and they have offices usually all over the world, sometimes just in New York and DC, but like there are these huge firms that bring in revenues like of over $1 billion, and the partners bring in profits of like, you know, $3+ million per partner. And they are the lawyers that basically represent everyone on Wall Street, the Fortune 500, the richest people on the planet. Those are the law firms that these companies and people use. Um, and so they're the firms that do the big stakes SEC investigations, DOJ investigations, everything related to the world that I was trying to go into. But to get into one of these law firms is very competitive. They basically recruit you while you're in the summer between your first and second year of law school. And so at that point, the only thing you have to show them are your grades from the first year of law school. So it's basically like the first year of law school, you like can't do anything but study for all your classes, and like you just have to do your best to get like the best grades possible because it's law school is graded on a curve. So only like a small percentage of people can get an A, and then more people get a B, a lot of people get C's, and then like a few people get D's and F's. But like you can't all get an A is basically the point. You're competing with all your classmates for the few A's. But you have to just do it, and then work really hard, network to get hired. So I did that while I was here in DC because I was interning at the public defenders here in DC that summer. And I was networking, going to all the firms, handing out resumes, meeting people for coffees and lunch. And then finally got an offer to be an intern for the following summer at one of these big law firms. I was so excited because it's like a 99.9% chance that after you intern for them that summer, they give you an offer to come back full time after law school. Of course, not, there's like every summer, there's like that one person that does something crazy and doesn't get an offer. But for the most part, it's like a guarantee. Um, so, so then I knew that I was heading off into that direction. And then I also spent a semester interning at the SEC because they're like the number one regulator for all things finance, Wall Street.
Hmm.
And that was a great experience. I loved working at the SEC. Definitely saw myself like working there in the future. I was like, oh, like maybe I want to go and be a regulator and work at the SEC. But ended up going to that big firm and was there for 6.5 years.
Wow. So basically that internship was your entrance into big law.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is the most common recruitment like portal for
Hmm.
law students is get that 2L summer internship. So it's like the summer between your second and third year, work at the firm, get an offer for when you graduate, and then you just go back to law school, finish your last year of law school, take the bar, and then after the bar, you start at the firm. And that's the clearest and easiest path to get into big law.
I know you said that summer here you were in DC interning. You were, going to different events, networking, coffee, lunches. How easy or difficult was it to get that internship?
So the legal profession is very focused on prestige and like um there's law schools are ranked. These big law firms are also ranked. And the better ranked your law school, the easier it is to get a job at one of these big law firms. So like if you go to a top 14 law school, it'll be quite easy. You don't have to be the top 10% of your class.
Hmm.
You can probably be like in the top 60% of the class and you'll still get an offer. But I went to a lesser ranked law school. I think at the time it was ranked like number 28 or something. So I was very much and it's a California school that like people in DC don't haven't been to that school.
Hmm.
So it's not like there's like a huge alumni network here that could introduce me to people. Like I think I'm the first person from my law school that firm had ever hired.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's like a big risk,
Yeah. Yeah.
for the firm. So it was a lot of following up with people who never emailed me back. Totally get it, they're busy, like, no hard feelings. But it's just like as soon as like I got one in, I'd be like, okay, like who do you know in the firm that I should talk to? And so I would just kind of like talk to that one person and then have them introduce me around. But yeah, it was hustling. But I loved that summer because I learned how to network. I had never intentionally networked before. I had always just kind of like gone with the flow. But that summer I was like, I'm getting an internship at one of these firms.
Speaking of networking, with that initial experience that summer, plus, you go to big law, and I'm sure part of it, if you want to go on the partner track, is networking, bringing your own clients in, right? And now with your
Right.
new business, I'm sure there's some kind of networking involved that you do. Any pointers or tips, Shirley, that you can give to the audience as far as, advice when you come into an event? How do you think? How do you prepare? What do you do?
Yeah, and so that summer, like you said, really set the foundation for the years since I've been a lawyer. So specifically to your question on tips of going into a networking event, absolutely. Have like a goal in mind. Is your goal to meet a person at a potential client to get business with them? Is your goal just to meet new people? Maybe you're in a new city, maybe you're new to DC or the DMV area, and you just kind of want to get plugged into the community that you're in, like whether it's the business community or the legal community or XYZ, whatever community it is, then it's good to go in knowing like what's my goal. I usually say I want to meet two new people. And I try to get that out of the way first. And then after I've met my goal, then my goal is like just enjoy the event, eat
Hmm.
the food, go talk to whoever you want and just like have fun and then go home. So those two people is will vary. Like, well, who are these two people? It's not just like meet two random people. No. So when I was a law student, it was always meet two associates who work at the firm. And I always targeted associates because they're closer in age, closer in experience. I found it less intimidating, so I was more likely to do it. And it's still a great contact because the associate will then know the partner, will then know the managing partner, will then, so it start wherever you feel comfortable. If you're setting a goal, you're not going to do it. Like my goal is to talk to the CEO of this business and or this like venture capital firm, and I'm going to pitch this thing. But then if you're not going to do it, or if it's like not the right context, like that shouldn't be your goal. And so now when I go to events, because now I have my own business, people don't like to be sold to when they're kind of like just having a good time eating free food. So my goal is like never like I'm gonna like get a client out of this event. No, it's literally always just like I'm gonna talk to two people. Doesn't matter if I know them from before or they're brand new, and just let them know what I do. So that's like my goal now. It's just like spreading awareness. So now here's another person or two who just knows that Shirley Diaz is an estate planning lawyer. Done. That's all I need to do. Why? Because someday they're gonna hear from someone like, oh, like I want to get my estate plan together, or I just had a kid and I think we should really have a trust. And they're gonna be like, oh, I know someone who does that. And then I'll hear from them again. So that's how I approach things now is just go in with an intention, get it done early, and then enjoy the event. And that way you have a positive view of networking events for yourself because the end of it will be like, oh, I had a great time, just like chatting with people, I ate food and like, you know, then I went home. So that's how I approach it. But I'm sure people have different techniques.
I love that, but that's great advice. That's more just, and I like it because it's more of a casual approach, right? It's more now for you is more just getting the word out as far as what you do, and what you specialize in, and that's it. Maybe they need my services now. Maybe they know someone who will need my services in the future, but just, hey, like you said, this is what I do, and then on to the next one, right?
Right. And also it's like context specific. So like if this is like your chamber networking event that happens once a month, that's like the more casual approach that I would take. Now, if this is like a convention, a conference, there's industry experts, the purpose there is to get business or is to pitch your services,
Hmm.
then I'm going to be a lot more aggressive, right? And I'm going to look at the attendee list and I'm going to target very specific people. So like for example, I went to a Women in Business of a conference recently in Los Angeles called Create and Cultivate. And that one is focused on getting business, finding clients, and collaborating with other people who maybe have a similar service or, kind of in the same ecosystem. And right now, I'm really focusing on estate plans for new parents, new families. And I wanted to get plugged in with sort of that new parent ecosystem. I don't know if you have any kids, but there's a whole industry and ecosystem around this. And so, who did I talk to? Well, I talked to a labor and delivery nurse who just started her own sort of like program to teach women how to prepare for labor. I spoke to a postpartum therapist. She specializes in therapy for women who are pregnant or just had a baby. And so that she's plugged into that world as well. Financial wealth managers, people who work with families and help them with their finances. So I wanted to talk to them because I want to understand how do they get clients? Because now those are the same clients that I want to target. And also maybe we can all collaborate, maybe we
Hmm.
can have a webinar or like a special event for new families. And here we're going to talk about everything, preparing for labor, having a therapist, having a financial, planning, having an estate plan, that's what I would talk about. So for those scenarios where like the goal is a little bit specific, I'll definitely be more aggressive in how I approach that kind of event.
I love that. That's great. So you said you were in this big law firm for 6 years, right? And
Yes.
what happened? Why'd you decide, this is not for me, I've had enough, or
No, it wasn't even that. It's a great firm. Gosh, I learned so much. I feel like it's the longest job I've ever had. Definitely the most like high stakes environment in terms of like the kinds of cases and the clients that we had.
I was going to ask you what type of law
Definitely.
were you practicing there?
So I was doing securities litigation defense. So
Okay.
literally representing companies that were under investigation by the SEC.
Hmm.
So the SEC would send a subpoena to the company and say, "Hey, we're investigating you for potential violations of federal securities laws." Then that company would hire our firm and we would help them through the entire investigation. I mean, it can be years. The investigations with the government can take a while. So it's everything from the government wants to talk to the CEO and the CFO and managers in this group. And so we prep them, we're going to practice what the interview might look like. Here are some documents that your name is on. Here's an email that you sent. Tell us about that email. What does that mean? And a lot of the investigations that I got put on related to bribery. So US company that sells stocks on some US stock exchange has an operation in Latin America. Usually I got Latin America because I speak Spanish. They have operations in some Latin American country and there's been a whistleblower allegation or there's been an article coming out in that country or someone's alleging that that company is bribing the local government officials for a variety of reasons to build a bridge that helps get to their uh, business or that gives them a permit to do something that they want to do, like whatever the bribery is for, or just to get a project approved through the government process. So typically, there's like an allegation of bribery, and then there's an investigation that starts, and then I would help out with that. So that was like the bulk of my business was bribery investigations, but I also did like accounting issues. We also did just general auditing of things. So it was a very, very fun practice area because you're you're investigating things that the SEC, so you're basically kind of like acting like one step ahead of the SEC in terms of like okay, the SEC is asking for all these documents. I'm going to read them first before sending them out. So we kind of know like what is coming. So it was really great. I really enjoyed it. And really the only reason that I left is because I had my son and I didn't think it was sustainable to meet the demands that are required for one of these big law firms, especially like if you want to make partner like you were mentioning, there's just so much that you have to do on top of your normal work. And I knew that I wouldn't have the capacity to be as present as I wanted to be with him and to do the work that would be required. So I decided it was best if I had my own firm so I could have a little bit more control over my schedule and like clients and when I'm present with him and when I'm present for the business. So, but I had a great experience. I learned so much and had really great cases.
With that law firm, were you out of the DC office or?
Yeah, I was based in DC. And basically it's because the SEC is here. So
Mhm.
whenever we need to go in person, I never got to go because I was junior and then we had the pandemic and then you know what I mean? So but a lot of clients that are being investigated by the federal government like their lawyers to be in DC since we have the proximity to all the offices.
So eventually, that's what really brought you to DC was that internship, which was DC office, which that obviously led to your full-time, career here, and then you decided to
Yep.
stay here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really great Hispanic legal community here in DC. It's small but mighty. So it's the Hispanic Bar Association is the organization, and I got introduced to them while I was a law student here for the summertime, and have been involved with them ever since. So through that, I was able to meet a bunch of friends, and so I kind of really got entrenched into the community here and this is home now.
Hmm.
I actually went back to Nevada because my mom still lives in Nevada during my maternity leave so that I could be close to my mom when I had my son. And I was there for almost a full year. And I left a couple of months before I was due, and then I stayed there during my maternity leave. So my son is 9 months old now. We just moved back to DC about a month ago. And I realized during that time in Nevada that like DC is home now. Like this is where I want to be.
You started missing DC.
I missed it the day I landed in Nevada. I was like, this was a huge mistake.
Oh,
I
really?
was
Oh,
like,
wow.
I was like, this was a bad idea. I should have just brought my mom to DC. But that's
Yeah,
how
that
you
probably would have
know.
been
You have to
better.
just experience it. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So this
So
is my home now.
you decide to go off on your own just because you're like, it's not sustainable with a newborn working before, I don't know, you were working 80 hours, maybe 100 hours a week. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's different seasons where it gets busier than others in big law, right? Um,
Right. Yeah.
and so you're like, okay, this is it. I'm going off on my own. What made you decide to sort of focus on this niche that you do now? Because you weren't doing that before in big law, right?
No, I wasn't doing this in Big Law. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I wanted to focus on that cross section between law and economics, law and finance. But ultimately I wanted to help everyday people, right? That was the original idea is I
Hmm.
wanted to be that like abogada for the people. And I wasn't doing that directly in the big law firm. I think indirectly I absolutely was because helping to ensure that large companies are not committing uh, securities violations ultimately strengthens the economy, but it's still kind of like that trickle down economics theory that like by helping these larger institutions, it's gonna make its way down to the everyday person, and that's like
Hmm.
not necessarily proven to be true. So I wanted to have the opportunity to work with an actual person as my client and not necessarily an institution or a corporation as the only client. So I was looking at what practice areas I could do that with. And now, of course, everyday people who have businesses can still be subject to SEC investigation if they make a specific claim for a security that's not true or if they themselves violate one of those laws. So certainly there are individual people that could have been potential clients, but I think it's very difficult to find those people because it's not every day that people are being investigated by the SEC. It's not a common occurrence in someone's life. So I didn't really think it would be a feasible business model to go find those particular people. And so then I did my own estate plan when I was pregnant because I'm a trained lawyer, so I understood the importance of having your affairs in order from what I learned in law school. I wouldn't have known that before. So I would imagine anyone who hasn't had the legal training doesn't necessarily think that it applies to them. But I knew that it was important. So I went and hired a lawyer and did my estate plan when I was pregnant. And I had a very positive experience. I felt a huge sense of relief. I felt very like at peace and just like, wow, my son is like going to be set no matter what happens to me. And I really enjoyed that experience. And I saw how that really does intersect with people's finance because it is about protecting all of this money that you're accumulating. If you start businesses, it's about protecting that. And I thought, okay, great. That's a great intersection of law, finance, and helping individual people. And so then that's how I decided on estate planning and made the pivot to working in that practice area.
That's great. So I'm listening to this. I have zero knowledge about law.
Okay.
They're like, what's an estate? What's an estate plan? What is that? What do I need that? What does it do? What's the whole point? Imagine I'm don't know anything.
Don't know anything. Great. And I'm going to assume a lot of your audience are business owners or people who want to be in business too. So I'll include that into my explanation. So an estate is you and everything you own.
Okay.
So if you don't own anything, you have a penny to your name, you have your body, that's still an estate because you can put in your estate plan how you want your body to be treated. So if you know you want to be cremated, you know you want to be buried, you know you want this or that. So basically, the estate is literally anything you own and you. So everyone has an estate. No one can tell me that they don't. Yes, you do. Um, and the estate plan is a plan for what you want to happen with you and all of your stuff when you either become unable to manage it for a variety of reasons, which I'll go through, or you die. So what's the reasons that you wouldn't be able to manage yourself or your assets? You could be arrested. You're in jail now. You can't pay your mortgage. You can't pay your bills because you don't have access to your accounts unless they're on auto pay, which you might want to set up. But say that you need to make a payment for your child's tuition or whatever it is, or a business expense, and you can't access any of your accounts because you're incarcerated. That could be an option. Um, you were in a crazy accident and now you're in a coma, you're in a hospital somewhere. You can't access any of your accounts. You can't speak on behalf of yourself. You can't tell your medical team what you want in terms of medical treatment for your body, again, your body. And so an estate plan would have a document called a power of attorney, which would allow a separate person besides yourself the power to control your finances during that period of time that you're incapacitated, is what we would call it. Um, so that's one thing. Then we would have a healthcare power of attorney, which can be the same person, but it's some person designated to make medical decisions on your behalf. And of course, when you name someone, either your power of attorney and or your healthcare power of attorney, you should tell them what you want, what your wishes are. So if you already know, I have a religion that prohibits me from getting a blood transfusion, your healthcare power of attorney would need to know that. And that way that they can tell your medical team, like this person, for religious reasons, would not want to have a blood transfusion. Or maybe this person, maybe you have an experience where you've seen someone in a vegetative state, a loved one, and you wished they hadn't been in that state for so long. And so for you, if you're ever in a position where the medical team says like there's no way to improve this person's quality of life, they're going to maintain that vegetative state, you might want to tell your healthcare power of attorney in advance, let them just pull the plug. I don't want to be in a vegetative state indefinitely. So those are things that you can plan for in advance, and that would be part of the estate plan. Another document that would be part of the estate plan is a guardian election. If you have children, who would be caring for your children in the case that you're incapacitated or in the case that you were to die unexpectedly? Now, a guardian election is not a guarantee. A judge is always going to have the final say when it comes to custody of a child, but at least there's a document written by the parents that can say, here are the people that I would prefer, or here are the people that I choose, that I trust to have guardianship over my children. So if you have kids and you don't have an estate plan, you have no idea who your kids are going to end up with. Your family might, you know, have to fight in court. They might be, going against each other, like I want the kids, or you won't know who they go to. But at least if you have a guardianship election, there's a starting point. So that would be part of the plan. Similarly, if you have pets, if you have a dog, if you have a cat, if you have, some sort of animal at home, you can also list, and that's property. So that you would actually get to definitively say, I want my dog to be cared for by this person. And you could even leave that person some money so that they would have something to take care of your pet. Um, so that would definitely be in the plan. And then the largest piece of the plan is creating a trust and creating a will. So the will, everyone's heard of a will. The issue with a will is once you've written it and then you die, someone has to take that will to court and do a legal process called probate. And they have to, prove that you did in fact sign this thing and that it is in fact the latest version of this thing. And if you leave money to people who maybe aren't expected heirs, like say that you leave some money to your kids, but you also leave like half of your money through your will to a charity, maybe one of the kids is like, I don't believe that that's what my mom or my dad would have wanted. And so they challenge that. And so it could take years before you receive your inheritance when there's only a will in place. Versus if there's a trust in place, all of that person's assets are being held by a separate legal entity called the trust. And that legal entity has levels of succession. So today you are the beneficiary of the trust. You get to use all of your assets in there and you get to control whether you sell them or not, what you put in your trust or not. And then you have a list. Who is the next person that holds the keys to the trust after I die? And you don't have to go to court. You don't have to fight over it. It's just already in a list. And so then as soon as that trust holder, the trust maker passes away, automatically everyone else gets their inheritance. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to fight about it. And so going to your audience, the business owners, like why would a business owner care about this? Okay, well, maybe for you, the business is just getting started like it is for me. But some people, this is your main source of income. And maybe not even your source of income. Maybe it's your family depends on this, or it's like, half of your family's income if you have a partner. So what happens if something happens to you? Who's going to run the business? Is there a plan in place for who's going to take over? Would your partner, whether it's a business partner or a romantic partner, do they know how to access your bank accounts? Do they have a client list? Do they know the systems? What if you have an adult child? They automatically become the heir to this business. Do they even know how to run the business? Do they want the business? And so you can have everything in place in terms of who ultimately owns your business, your LLC. And this is if you own it 100%. If you have a business partner, I mean, the same questions come up. If you have a business partner and they're married, their spouse would automatically become the owner of the shares of your business partner. Is that what you want to happen? Maybe, maybe not. But these are all things that if you don't plan for, and of course, we can never know what the future holds. You can have some unexpected consequences if a business partner or even yourself, become incapacitated or die suddenly. And an estate plan is designed to account for all those possible scenarios and just make a plan for what would happen in each of those instances so that it's just like insurance. Like you don't ever expect to get in a car accident, hopefully. Um, but we all still have car insurance, even though we're forced to. But I'm sure even if we weren't forced to, we would have it because you want to make sure that you can pay for any damages and you're not out a car. So that's in a nutshell what an estate plan is. But it's a new concept for some people, so I'm sure there's still a lot of questions about
Yeah.
it.
Thank you for the explanation. What if you have children? You were mentioning earlier how you went to this conference, and as far as, connecting with people that deal with a lot of, new parents, new mothers. What if you have children?
Yeah. So I think new parents are probably the most likely to get an estate plan right now, or like even new business owners, but I'm focused on what does a new parent need? So the new parent is worried about what happens if something happens to the parents
Mm-hmm.
while the child is still underage, right?
Yes.
And look, I'm sure most people have a loving family structure, extended family. There's grandparents, there's aunts and uncles, like, the family would find a way to make sure those kids are cared for, right? But imagine how painful it would be for your extended family if you, as a young person that just had a child or recent has young kids, suddenly passes unexpectedly and they're grieving, they're mourning, they're trying to figure out how to cope with that. They're going to court to try to get custody of the kids. No, do they have to figure out who is going to have custody? And they don't have any access to any of your money. So they have to now go out of pocket or scramble, or suddenly they have these kids that they're responsible for. They may already have their own kids. They may be retired and living on a very limited income. And so you've just set up your family for like an extremely stressful situation on top of the fact that they're mourning and grieving an unexpected loss. Now, imagine if you had had an estate plan in place with life insurance on top of that, where the life insurance payout, let's say it's like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, minus 5 million, goes straight into the trust that you already set up, and your brother, mother, whoever you designated as the next person that has access after you pass. So, like, literally within days, your family now has access to millions of dollars to care for the kids, and they know exactly who is the designated guardian that's going to have custody of the kids. And you talk to them in advance, you let them know where all your bank accounts are, you left them a list of all the account numbers and the list of who your estate planning lawyer is, who your insurance agent is, and they know exactly where to go. Imagine the difference in grieving and the process for your family if that's the plan that you had in place and you left them with that. I think that's a much better situation to leave your family in, and you guarantee that your kids are going to continue to move forward with whatever path they had in mind. If they always dreamed of, of going to college or of starting a business, and they now continue to have that expectation because they know that the money is there, the plan is there, everything continues to be in place.
That's great. You were mentioning just now, Shirley, you give them a list of all the different bank accounts, everything you have. Do you give this to them prior, or just in case, let's say something does happen to you, then this gets triggered and then they have access to this information until then, if something like that were to occur?
Yeah, so typically I, as the lawyer, would have a binder for the client.
Hmm.
I would not, I would have all their bank account numbers as of the last day that the client gave me that information. So like
As
if
the
they create
attorney,
new
though.
accounts as the attorney, yes.
Correct.
And I would
Okay.
keep that like in a secure portal. And then the client would have like a physical binder and also like a digital binder with all of this stuff as well.
Hmm.
And typically, what I would do is I would have a conversation with anyone named in a trust as a guardian, as a trustee, as a power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. I would make sure to have a family meeting after the estate plan is completed, and introduce myself to all of them and like let them know these are all your roles. And the binder itself has like a tab, like a 911 tab. And so they know where to find it in the house, but I also have a copy and they've met me. So they don't necessarily need to have all of the account information like in their house or in their possession.
Hmm.
I think some people are not like necessarily comfortable with having their account numbers all over the place. But yeah, there's definitely like a system in place and everyone knows what their role would be. It's almost like a fire drill, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, here's our like designated spot that we're gonna meet at, and like you're the hall attendant, and kind of here's everyone's role, and then we kind of have that meeting and talk it through. And then hopefully we never have to do it. Hopefully everyone just dies of old age with no money in the bank because they spent it all traveling and they gave it all away, and there's like nothing to worry about. And that's always the goal, right? But the issue is you can't guarantee that. We have no idea what's going to happen. So, like I said, it's basically just insurance for your income as a respect to your loved ones. So, like, what happens um, if you suddenly and unexpectedly become ill or pass away, and how are you preparing your family if that ever happened? And again, hopefully it never happens, but we don't know.
Do you find most people are open to getting this? Because I'm thinking even just as an immigrant, like my parents, growing up, they're like, ¿Qué, qué es eso? Like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
so you need to maybe have a experienced, or maybe they're just open enough to be like, okay, maybe this is something I need to look into.
Yeah, I mean, my parents don't have an estate plan. My grandparents didn't have estate plans. And I can tell you when my grandmothers were the last ones to pass, it's a mess that they're still dealing with. And it's an international mess now because they had property all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm just observing that and I'm just like, it's complicated. Like my grandmother's house, the one in Mexico, she just like left it to all the kids at once. There's seven of them. And so no one was paying the property taxes for like
Hmm.
10 years. And then finally the government came and was like, if you don't pay it all now, we're gonna take the house. And so it was like a mad dash to like collect from everyone. And like some people gave and some people didn't give. And so that has like different legal implications that I don't think that they were thinking about. And I'm just like, I don't want to leave anyone in that position. Or on my dad's side, his mother, my grandmother, passed, and she had several different properties throughout Spain. And one of the properties was still in her dad's name because she never uh, was able to change the title to her name. And so it's just like this is such a mess, you guys. Like, can
Yeah.
we not? And you don't want to be in that, you don't want to put your kids in that position where when they're adults and you're much older, they have to come to you with an awkward conversation about, hey, do you have a will? Do you have a trust? What's your estate plan like? Because then you're putting your adult kids in that awkward position where they're having to parent you, right? Like, so if you're the adult, you should be responsible for your own affairs and have your affairs in order. It's the financially responsible thing to do. It's the kind thing to do. Because at some point everyone's going to die, and if you have things to your name, your kids are going to have to figure out what to do with it. Um, and and it's just not fair to like leave that burden to other people. But that's everyone's plan. Everyone's plan is don't die, right? That's all of our plans right now. Is just don't die. And
Yeah.
it's
Good
been
luck
working
with
great up
that.
until now. Right, yeah, and it's been working great up until now. So people put it off. Um, and then once people are actually at the age where death becomes more of a reality, then they don't want to do it because it does bring it into the forefront. Because during an estate planning, you know, planning like a meeting with a lawyer, like I am going to ask you, do you want to be cremated or do you want to be buried? And if you're 35, that's a great, you don't care you don't feel the weight of that conversation, assuming you're like a healthy 35-year-old. You're like, okay, I want to be buried, whatever.
Hmm.
But if you're already like in your 70s or 80s, that is you don't want to, it's a weird question to answer and to have to ask. So that's why I'm focused on getting younger and younger people to get their estate plan together because then it just becomes a normal part of life. It's just like filing your taxes, death and taxes, right? Like you can't
Hmm.
avoid it. And it just becomes part of a habit that you do every couple of years is make sure that your estate plan is still naming the people that you want to be named and you still have the same, healthcare power of attorneys that you want or the power of attorney that you want named. And it's not a weird or an awkward thing.
If someone's considering getting an estate plan done, how much does something like this would typically cost?
So it can range anywhere in the DMV from $2,000 for a very, very simple estate, all the way up to $10,000 plus if you have, more than $1 million in assets, several million, 5 million plus in assets.
Hmm.
So it's not an inexpensive thing, though I will say most of the upfront costs happen at the first meeting when you're doing setting up your very first estate plan. And then after that, the maintenance costs are like every 3 to 5 years, it's another couple $1,000s. if you had more kids or you opened a new business or you sold your house and now you have a new house, or maybe some of the people that you had named in your plan that themselves have died, so you have to pick new people. So it's not something that you just like do once and then you're done forever.
Hmm.
There are maintenance costs associated with it, but I would say plan. I'm going to assume your audience has at least a moderate to high estate and not like a super simple one where there's nothing really to plan for. So I would budget anywhere from like $6,000 to $7,000
Okay.
for a typical estate plan.
That's great. You just started recently, the firm, Diaz Vidales,
Yes,
just about a month ago or so.
a month ago. Yep.
So how has it been?
We were talking about networking and how I had the first experience with networking when I was in law school. And thankfully, after that experience, I just kind of kept doing it, even though I had a job lined up and even though I was at a firm for years and I didn't really see myself leaving the firm while I was there. But I kept networking. I kept being involved in the associations and the in the chambers and the bar associations and the governing committees and like, you know, being super involved. So thankfully, when I went off to start my own firm, I kind of already had this like network of like amazing professional people who like totally supported me and like were totally like referring me to their friends and their family members and their colleagues and like so all of that like legwork that I had done, which I had no agenda when I was doing it. I was
Hmm.
literally just like making friends and meeting people in DC. That has all like helped. So that way, when I went out and started, people were like super excited for me and have been like sending me all of their friends. So it's been really great in that sense. I'm really glad. So if anything, another pitch for networking is like just do it because you never know
Yeah.
when you might need to call on your network for something. Um, but on the other side of things, like I have never run or managed a business before. So it's a lot of like learning of like just the economics of it, right? Like how to set prices. You asked me about pricing, like how to set pricing. I'm like calling people that have had estate plans, like, hey, what did you pay for your estate plan, last year? And like, did you get it in Maryland? Was it in Virginia, in DC? And then like just literally calling other estate planning lawyers, like, what do you charge for this? What do you charge for that? So like a lot of market research to like
Okay.
set prices. Um, Everyone's trying to sell you something for your new business. There's
Of
like
course.
endless cold calls of like, we offer this for new businesses. It's like, hello, it's a new business. I don't have any money for any of this. So like, no. Um, and I think it's good to be very frugal up front with your business in terms of like, um, do as much as you can yourself. I mean, I've been enjoying doing as much as I can myself because I'm like learning front to back,
Hmm.
ins and outs. Uh, I think it's really tempting to just like throw money at something, but like to what end? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think it's good to like keep that like scrappy mentality at least at first, so that you're setting up your business to actually make money instead of like you're bringing in revenue, but then you're like you got all these like overhead costs like month to month because like you signed up for all this stuff that you were told you needed. So yeah, I'm learning a lot about sifting through all of that.
That's great. From a marketing standpoint, what do you do to bring in business? Is it the networking as far as going back to that network and telling them, hey, I have my own firm now, this is what I do, or
That's what I've been doing. And I've been doing that through LinkedIn and through Instagram. So I mean, my LinkedIn is public, my Instagram is public. So I mean, theoretically, I could be reaching anyone, but of
hmm.
course, unless you have like a gazillion followers or something goes viral, you're really just reaching your network, right?
Yes.
Um, so so I've been reaching my network, posting a lot, being very consistent with the posting. I was never a content creator before this, but I know for a fact because it's what I do when you're scrolling through Instagram on the weekends or at night or like whenever you have free time. So like that's where my audience is. Like millennials, Gen Z, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. Every now and then they're on LinkedIn. So like that's where I need to be. And my parents are like, "Oh, you need to like get a TV ad." I'm like, "No one watches TV anymore. I mean, at least I don't." So I feel like a lot of people don't watch TV anymore. So like that's not really like where it's at. So
So
yeah,
you're
social media.
reaching out. So for marketing, you're going to social media then and just posting things, updating people, talking about whatever, right? Um,
Right.
was it ever like I have these people contacts on my cell phone. Let me just send them a text or a call. You're like, hey, you know me from maybe we met at some event before, and I was doing this with this big law firm. Now I'm going off on my own and doing this. Or has it just been being proactive on social media, not much on the cell phone or phone call?
I have thought about doing those one-on-one outreach by email or by text because I do think that's really effective.
Hmm.
I just literally haven't had the time. I think I I really wanted to learn how to be consistent on social media just because I know that's like a long-term strategy that I want to have.
Yes.
So it was really kind of getting into like learning how to do that because it's really hard. I mean, I found it hard. Maybe other people find it easy and it's like fun. It is fun, but I think it's difficult to put new content out like every single day. And if you like miss a day or two, and then you're like, oh, no, I missed a day. So I'm like trying to really focus on the social media. But yeah, I think it's important to connect with contacts one-on-one, like warm contacts that you've known forever. And I'm also doing like panel presentations and like speaking engagements because I think that's especially for lawyers is really important because I feel like most people, if they needed some legal service, they're going to go to like the one or two lawyers that they already know and just ask them if they do that thing. So like if someone I don't know, is about to get married and they want to get a prenup. And they're just going to go to a lawyer that they know and ask, like, hey, can you do my prenup? And the lawyer probably doesn't practice in family law. And so they're going to say, I can't do it, but I know someone who does. And so a lot of like the referrals come through other lawyers more than anything. So so that's been my big focus. But like I said, I also want to get into the new parent sort of ecosystem.
Hmm.
So my next marketing strategy is to reach out to like the fertility clinics and to the OBG's offices and the labor and delivery nurses and kind of get plugged in to any events that they're doing for clients or any activities that they have where I'd be able to go and speak or maybe just send like an email to their listers or offer like a free webinar for estate planning for new families and do it that way too.
That's great. Since you're deep in the trenches right now, Shirley, what advice would you give someone if maybe they've been on the fence? They're like, I've always thought about starting this business or this idea I had. What would you suggest for them to do if they're like, okay, this is it, I need to do it?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think um have like a number that you would want saved in your bank so that you can feel comfortable that, you know, if anything goes wrong, you're going to be fine.
Hmm.
That at least to me was comforting. I'm more of like a type A plan everything out kind of a personality, very risk averse. So for me, starting a firm on my own was like the craziest thing I've ever done. Um, Even though now that I've done it, it doesn't seem that crazy at all. Like it seems like a completely reasonable thing to do. An experienced learning attorney starting a law firm, like isn't that what all like most attorneys have their own firms? Like it's not that big of a deal now that I've done it. But I felt comforted because I was happy with the amount of savings that I had. So I felt like, okay, I can still cover my cost of living. So like that's not going to be affected. This is really more like let me focus on building out the business, making sure that I'm doing like great client service, that I'm setting things up the way that I would want to be, treated as a client at a law firm, and really being able to focus on the experience of it and the infrastructure of it, and not stressing out so much about let me just get any kind of case that I can get in the door because I need revenue, right? So that for me was like a peace of mind. So I would say great. You have the thought you want to do it. Like let's set up a plan for how are you gonna what's your exit strategy for your current role. I wouldn't say like just quit and start now because you had an idea. I would say like plan it out. And then, most people that are not me, that are smarter than me, would build a client base wherever they are now and leave and just like take their clients with them so that you're not starting from zero like I did. So if that's at all possible, in your current role or your current practice, then start doing that. But you also don't need clients to start. I'm an example of that. You can always get clients. after the fact. People will hire you. People always need lawyers. Anyone at any time can make an estate plan. So that's another thing that I loved about that practice area because, family law or criminal law or like what I was doing before, securities defense, it's like a one-time event in someone's life that, you know, they're getting a divorce, suddenly they got arrested or, they're getting investigated by the government. It's like these one-off events that don't typically happen, and you don't want to be seeing your lawyer for that. It's a negative event
Yeah.
versus an estate plan. Literally anyone at any point in time can make one, and it's because you want to and you want to do something, positive for your family.
That's great. Coming to an end here soon, are there any specific habits or traits you feel you have that have helped you, whether in your career in business or just outside of it personally?
Yeah, I got some really great advice from a mentor years ago, and she said, always work like you're working for yourself, like no matter what job you had. So she was a chef, and she said that she started her career working for free, just like knocking on any of the great restaurants in Paris at the time, and just literally saying like, I will wash dishes, I will do whatever, just to get in the kitchen to see what was happening. And whatever it is that she did it exceptionally well. So she would get noticed and like always made sure she was doing her best because her name was attached to it. And I got this advice from her when I was in college. I was at a conference. And I feel like I've tried to focus on that ever since. It's like no matter what the job is, like there's an episode of Friends where they're planning a party, and Phoebe, who's like, the really like hectic one, she's like wants to help, but Monica, who's like type A, wants to plan the whole party and doesn't want Phoebe to be have any role in it. So Monica gives Phoebe the role of, you bring cups and you can bring ice. That's the only thing you're doing for this party. Well, Phoebe shows up and like has decorated the whole apartment with like red cups and sort of like all like laced around the house. And like the theme of the party is like we're doing like shaved ice out of cups as like the main dessert. So she basically turned the whole party into cups and ice themed. Um, and so like that's like those two things have been like my mentality. Like if your name's on it, treat it like as if it's your own business and like literally do the best job no matter how minute the role is because it will get you noticed. And I think thanks to me doing that over the last almost 7 years that I've been a lawyer, that is like your reputation kind of follows you. And so that's been the reason why people have been more than happy to send me referrals for their friends and their family to do something as important as their estate plan. Because even though I'm like new to the practice area and it's a brand new firm, people are like, it's Shirley, she's gonna do
Yeah.
it, she's gonna do it well. So yeah.
What is your biggest challenge with your role today at Diaz Vidales?
So because I'm such a great networker, I am always booked for coffee and lunches, and that's so much fun and so amazing. However, there's no one else to do the work now. Like I don't have paralegals, I don't have a legal assistant. Like there's no like, clerk that's going to file things for me. Like I'm the only one. So I have to do my time management. That's the number one thing. I need to like rework how I'm going to block my time so that I'm not like constantly going from like this to that and then like this event and that event. Like I need to be like, no, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do the work, and I'm only going to like, plan for out of office events like specific times so that I can get in flow and stay in flow and like, get the work done.
So are you now going to schedule, I guess, coffees or lunch or networking events during certain times or periods of the week?
That's what I've been toying with. It's like maybe I designate like, okay, Mondays I only do client work. You cannot book me for coffee on a Monday.
Okay.
But like Fridays, okay, great. Like Fridays we can go to coffee, we can grab, lunch or whatever it is. So I need to figure out what days of the week would be best for that, and just have people like fit them in when those days are up. Because otherwise, yeah, like I'll be working on something and I'll get like deep in flow, and then I'm like, oh, I have to go because I have to go like to this lunch. But at the same time, I need to be doing that networking because that's how I'm getting referrals.
Hmm.
So I still need to do it, but I need to balance it with with getting into that great state of flow and staying there and taking advantage of those creative juices that like, okay, we're doing it. Like, let's get it done.
What do you know now, Shirley, you wish you would have known at the start of your career?
What do I know now that I wish I would have known at the start of my career? Just having the confidence, like you're going to learn it, you're going to do it. I think at the beginning of anything new, especially like a career, like a legal profession, and especially when, you're maybe like a minority group or like underrepresented in that space, you kind of maybe have like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to get to that level? Like, can I do it? Like, what does that look like even? And so I wish I would have maybe had more confidence to like go to that partner and like be like, you're going to mentor me. Like literally just go up to them like, you are going to mentor me because I saw how you spoke at this client meeting and I know you know your stuff and I'm going to learn just like, to get to your level versus like maybe being a little bit more like reserved because you're like, oh, I don't want to bother like the partner and like I don't want to bother this like super important person. Like go bother them because at least in the legal profession, it's all about apprenticeship. Like we learn by working under a more experienced person, and then eventually we get enough experience to where we can handle things on our own, and have the knowledge and confidence to do it. So be bold in the beginning. Go get your mentors. Go get that information that you need, uh, because you're capable of handling it, doing it.
That's great. What does the next couple of years look like for you? What are you most excited about?
Well, I'm really excited about my son seeing the example of me having my own business because I'm thinking, yeah, like 5 years out, right? Like he'll be 5 years old and all he'll know is that his mom has a law firm, right? And to me, that's
Mhm.
wild. Like, my parents, were employees all their life, even though they had their own small businesses here and there, but like generally they were employed, which is also, great. But I knew that like they wanted to do more but they felt limited by like the parameters of their role, right? So that's just one thing is I really want to stay in business and have show that example to my son. But hopefully in 5 years, I am like the go-to estate planning lawyer for all new families. So it's basically like you go to your doctor, you get positive pregnancy test, and all your friends are like, you got to go see Shirley, you got to go get an estate plan done. Like she's the one to do it. And I'm hoping to see myself. I'm hoping that that's in my future is that I'll be the go-to estate planning lawyer for all new families in DC.
Nice. I know you have a newborn, you have a baby, and
Yes.
obviously you have another baby with this law firm. So when
Right.
you're not busy working, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
We love to go to DC United games. We are like number one fans. We sit like right in the front. We always get there super early. So I don't think people know this. If you're a soccer fan and if you're a DC United fan in particular, if you go to the stadium like at 5 o'clock, so usually the game starts at 7:30.
Okay.
If you go there at 5 o'clock and you stand on the corner of Second and T Street, Southwest, there's a parking lot where all the players park, and they have to cross the street out in public to get to the stadium. And so you can line up there. They have like little barriers there, and you can line up at the barrier and you can take selfies with them and you can get autographs. Like you can bring a soccer ball and they can sign it, or like a jersey and they'll sign it. And I've been doing that for like a year now. So at this point, like all the players have seen me. I don't think they don't know my name or anything, but like they've seen me. And I was like pregnant all of last year, and then now I have the baby. And so like I'll like give them the baby too, like carry carry the baby. Let me get a picture with you and the baby. So I think it's really fun. So yeah, we're really big DC United fans.
Oh, I didn't know that. So this is between what streets you said? What was the intersection?
Second and T.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you are at Audi Field, you can just ask for the bike valet. It's right where the bike valet is.
Okay.
But you got to get there early because they get there between 5 and 6. Like by 6 o'clock, they're all inside the locker room, so you're too late. Uh, and at 6 o'clock is when the stadium opens, and that's the best time to get there because there's no food lines, there's no security lines. You just basically like walk into the stadium, buy whatever food you want, have a nice dinner, eat in peace, and then you can go to your seat and then watch the game will kick off after that.
Oh, it'd be interesting now that I'm thinking about it. If you know a DC United player who just had a child, be like, "Oh, here's my business card. Maybe you might need my services."
That would be like a huge win. I would love to do an estate plan for a DC United player. That would absolutely make my day.
Actually, one of our guests in our show, I can't remember if it was a second or third season, DC
Uh-huh.
United player. We've had him on the show. He's a professional soccer player, but now he's in Austin FC. So that he got traded, I think, last year, and now
What's
he
his
played.
name?
I'm blanking out on
You're
on the
blanking on
name.
his name. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like put me on the spot.
Sorry. Okay.
Um,
An Austin FC player. Okay.
yeah, he was in DC United for
Mm.
many years. He played abroad.
Uh-huh.
And actually, no, I think his child is probably just maybe like 2 years old now. I know when he was on the show, he was maybe a year old or so. But
Okay.
anyways, I just thought about it since you mentioned DC United.
Okay. Well, yeah. I would love to land one of them as a client. But the thing with attorney advertising rules is you're not like allowed to solicit people in person.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I
So
didn't
like you can
know.
like yeah, you can like advertise, but like because otherwise lawyers would just go to hospitals and just stand there and be like, oh,
That's
were you in an
true.
accident? Like you can hire me.
Okay.
So it's kind of like one of those things where we just kind of like put it out in the universe and then like people have to come to us. We can't like solicit people.
But then, yeah, I guess it is different because then how would you're in a network event, you're not exactly soliciting the person in front of you, you're just talking about your personal stuff, work, and then it just, you talk about business.
Right, right. So that's why I said I just let them know what I do
Okay, okay.
and leave it at that.
That's
So
great. People want
yeah.
to learn more about you, Shirley. Where can they go to get more information, please?
Yeah, so our website is diazvidales.com and we're also on socials. So on Instagram, it's at Diaz Vidales Law. And my personal page is at Shirdiz. It's like my name smushed together, Shirdiz.
Shirley, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, take care.
Okay, bye.